This is my grandfather's World War II uniform. It hasn't been worn in 80 years. Last week, I decided to put it on and wear it in public for 7 days straight. What happened, what people said to me, I wasn't ready for any of it. But before I tell you about the moment that completely broke me, you need to know how this all started. 3 months ago, my grandmother died. She was 96 years old, and honestly, I thought I was ready. But you're never really ready, are you? A week after the funeral, my mom asked me to help clean out Grandma's attic. Boxes everywhere. Decades of memories packed away in dust and darkness. And then, in the back corner, I found an old military trunk. The kind you see in movies. Olive green. Heavy. With my grandfather's name stenciled on the side, Corporal James R. Mitchell. Now here's the thing. My grandfather died when I was 12. That was 10 years ago. And in all those years he was alive. He never once talked about the war. Not at Christmas dinner. Not at birthday parties. Not ever. My dad told me once that Grandpa just didn't want to remember. So when I opened that trunk and saw his uniform, perfectly folded like he'd just put it away yesterday, I felt like I was looking at a stranger, this whole part of his life I knew nothing about. The jacket still had his patches. 101st Airborne Division, the Screaming Eagles, D-Day, Market Garden, Battle of the Bulge. This wasn't just fabric. This was history. I held it up, and that's when I noticed something. We're the same size, exactly the same size. He was 22 when he wore this in 1944. I'm 22 right now. And that's when the idea hit me. What if I wore it? Not to play dress up, not to disrespect anything, but to honor him, to feel what he felt, to see how people would react. Would anyone even care? Would anyone remember? I decided to wear my grandfather's uniform for 1 full week. 7 days, in public, everywhere I went. What happened next changed everything I thought I knew about my grandfather, and about what it means to remember. Day 1. Monday morning. I'm standing in my bedroom, holding this uniform, and I'm terrified. Not because I'm scared of what people will say. I'm scared I'm doing something wrong, like I'm trespassing on sacred ground. But I put it on anyway. Button by button, the jacket fits perfectly. The pants, the belt, everything. It's like it was made for me. Or maybe I was made for it. I don't know. Oh. I look in the mirror, and for just a second, I see him. My grandfather at 22. Before the war changed him. Before whatever happened over there that he could never talk about. I decided to start simple. Walk to the coffee shop 2 blocks from my apartment. That's it. Baby steps. The second I step outside, I feel eyes on me. A woman walking her dog stops and stares. A guy on his phone looks up, does a double take. Nobody says anything, but I can feel them wondering, why is this kid wearing a World War II uniform? I make it to the coffee shop, order my usual. The barista, this girl I've seen 100 times, she looks at the uniform and just nods. Respectful, silent. She writes, "Thank you for your service," on my cup. I don't correct her. How do I explain this? I sit down by the window, and that's when an old man walks in. He must be in his 90s, moving slow, cane in one hand, and the second he sees me, he stops, just freezes in the doorway. He walks over to my table, doesn't ask permission, just stands there staring at my uniform, and then he speaks. 101st Airborne? He says. His voice is shaking. Yes, sir. I tell him. It was my grandfather's. The man's eyes fill with tears. I was 82nd, he says. 82nd Airborne. We jumped together. Normandy, June 6th, 1944. He reaches out and touches the patch on my shoulder, like he's touching a ghost. I lost a lot of friends that day, he whispers. Good men. Boys, really. 19, 20 years old. We stand there in silence. I don't know what to say. What do you say to someone who survived D-Day? He shakes my hand, holds it tight, and then he says, "Your grandfather would be proud you're wearing that. Don't ever forget what it means." And then he walks away. I sit back down, and my hands are shaking. I've been wearing this uniform for less than an hour, and I'm already crying in a coffee shop. That's when I realized this wasn't going to be easy. Day 2, I had to run errands, grocery store, bank, post office, normal Tuesday stuff. Except nothing felt normal. At the grocery store, a woman in her 70s sees me in the cereal aisle. She doesn't say hi. She just walks up and stares at the uniform, and then she starts crying. "I'm sorry," she says, wiping her eyes. "It's just but my father wore that same uniform. Same patches, same everything. He was killed in France in 1944. I was 3 years old. I don't even remember what he looked like. Just pictures." She touches my sleeve, very gently. "He never got to come home," she whispers. "They sent us his uniform, but my mother couldn't look at it. She burned it, said it hurt too much." "I wish she hadn't," the woman continues. "I wish I had something of his to hold on to." I didn't plan this. I didn't think about what this uniform would mean to other people. I was so focused on my grandfather, I forgot there were millions of grandfathers. Millions of fathers who wore this same uniform. Millions who didn't come home. The woman thanked me for wearing it, for remembering, and then she hugged me in the middle of the grocery store, and we both just stood there, crying. Day 3 was even more intense. I decided to visit my old high school. I don't know why. Maybe I wanted to see how younger people would react. Kids who didn't grow up with grandparents who fought in World War II. Most of the students just stared at their phones. A few gave me weird looks. But then I walked past a history classroom, and the teacher spotted me. She practically dragged me inside. "We're studying World War II right now," she said. "Would you mind talking to the class?" I spent the next hour with 30 teenagers, showing them the uniform, telling them about my grandfather. They asked questions. Good questions. What was D-Day like? Why did they call it the Battle of the Bulge? How many soldiers died? And then one kid, quiet kid in the back, raised his hand. "Did your grandpa ever tell you what it was like?" he asked. "No," I said. "He never talked about it. Not once." "Why not?" the kid pressed. I stood there in front of that classroom, wearing my grandfather's uniform, and I realized I had no idea. I never asked. And now I never could. "I don't know," I finally answered. "I think maybe it was too painful. Maybe he was protecting us from it." The kid nodded, like he understood something I didn't. By day 4, I was exhausted. Not physically, emotionally. Because every single day someone had a story. Someone cried. Someone thanked me. Someone told me about the uncle who died at Iwo Jima, the brother who was shot down over Germany, the father who never talked about the Philippines. This uniform wasn't just cloth anymore. It was carrying all of this, all of them. And I was starting to understand why my grandfather never wore it again. Kapori. I needed a break. I needed silence. So I went to the local Veterans Memorial, a quiet park with a stone wall covered in names. Names of people from my town who died in wars. World War II, Korea, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. I sat on a bench, just staring at all those names, hundreds of them. And I started thinking, how many of these people were forgotten? How many names on this wall does anybody actually remember? That's when I heard a voice behind me. That's a 101st patch. I turned around. An old man, had to be pushing 100, was standing there with a walker, white hair, weathered face, eyes that had seen things. Yes, sir, I said. It was my grandfather's. I was there, the man said, simply. D-Day, Utah Beach, June 6th, 1944. My heart stopped. This man was there, on the actual beach, on the most important day of the war. His name was Frank. He sat down next to me, moving slow, and for the next 30 minutes, he told me things I'd only read about in books. The sound of the boats hitting the water, the smell of smoke and salt, the screaming, the praying, the boys who died before they even made it off the landing craft. I was 19 years old, Frank said. 19. I didn't know anything about anything. None of us did. We were just kids who wanted to do the right thing. He pointed to a name on the wall. Thomas Sullivan, 1925 to 1944. That was my best friend, Frank whispered. Tommy. We grew up together, enlisted together. He died on the beach, right next to me. I held his hand while he bled out. He was 19 years old. 19. We sat there in silence. What do you say to that? What words exist? And then Frank looked at me, looked at the uniform, and he said something I'll never forget. You wearing that uniform, it means we're not forgotten. That's all we ever wanted, son. Not medals, not parades, just not to be forgotten. Not us, not Tommy, not any of the boys who didn't come home. That's when I lost it. Completely broke down. Right there on that bench next to a 99-year-old D-Day veteran, I cried like a child. Because I finally understood. My grandfather didn't talk about the war, because he couldn't. How do you explain watching your friends die? How do you come home and pretend to be normal when you've seen hell? How do you tell your grandkids about the worst days of your life? You don't. You bury it. You fold up the uniform. You put it in a trunk in the attic. And you hope that somehow, some way, they'll understand without you having to say it. Frank put his hand on my shoulder. Your grandfather was a good man for keeping that uniform, he said. He wanted you to find it someday. He wanted you to remember. Day 6 was quiet. I didn't go anywhere public. I just wore the uniform around my apartment, sat with it, thought about everything that had happened that week. I thought about the old man in the coffee shop, the woman in the grocery store, the high school kids, Frank at the memorial, all these lives connected by one war, one generation, one uniform. And I thought about my grandfather, really thought about him. Not as the quiet old man I remembered, but as a 22-year-old kid who jumped out of an airplane over France, who fought through hedgerows and winter snow, who lost friends, who saw things no one should see, and who came home and never said a word about any of it. That took more strength than I could ever imagine. Day 7, the final day. I knew exactly where I needed to go. I drove to the cemetery where my grandfather is buried. I hadn't been there since the funeral. 10 years. I'd avoided it because I don't know. It hurt too much, maybe. But I went, wearing his uniform, and I sat down in the grass next to his headstone. Corporal James R. Mitchell, 1922 to 2015, 101st Airborne Division. I talked to him, out loud. I told him about the week, about Frank, about the woman who lost her father, about the kid in the history class who asked why he never talked. And I told him I understood now, that the silence wasn't weakness, it wasn't shame, it was love. He didn't want us to carry what he carried. He wanted us to have the peace he fought for. But Grandpa, I said, my voice breaking, we carry it anyway, because it's ours to carry too, because you're part of us, because what you did matters, because you mattered. I stood up, and I did something I'd never done before. I saluted him, a proper military salute. I probably did it wrong, but I did it. And I swear I felt him there, felt him proud, felt him at peace. I took off the uniform that night, folded it carefully, put it back in the trunk, and I realized something. That uniform changed me. I thought I was honoring my grandfather by wearing it. But really I was honoring every single person who wore one. The 16 million Americans who served in World War II. The 400,000 who never came home. The millions who came back different, changed, carrying scars we couldn't see. My grandfather kept that uniform for 80 years. Through moves, through decades, through a whole lifetime. He kept it because it meant something. Because the boys who wore uniforms like that, the ones who didn't come home, deserved to be remembered. And now I get it. Memory isn't just about the past. It's about the present. It's about saying, you existed, you mattered, you're not forgotten. If your grandfather, your grandmother, your great-uncle, anyone in your family served and never talked about it, don't take it personally. They weren't hiding from you. They were protecting you. They were giving you the gift they never had, a life without war. Honor them however you can. Find their uniform, tell their story, visit their grave. Just remember. Because one day, we'll all be names on a wall. We'll all be photographs in an attic, and the only thing that will matter is whether anyone remembers we were here. My grandfather was here. He mattered. And wearing his uniform for 1 week reminded me that heroes don't always talk about what they did. Sometimes they just fold up their uniforms, put them away, and hope that someday, someone will understand. I understand now, Grandpa, and I'll never forget. Thank you for watching. If this story touched you, please share it. Tell someone. Keep the memory alive. That's all they ever wanted. We will remember them.